8%, that's all I asked for. Jennifer Morrison's laughter echoed through her glass corner office like machine gun fire. At your age, Michael, we need fresh blood, not expensive legacy employees stuck in the mainframe era. She couldn't even finish the sentence without another burst of laughter, her Stanford diploma gleaming behind her like some trophy of superiority. I'm Michael Peterson, by the way. 49 years old, Director of Cloud Security at Cloud Tech Systems here in Austin. Standing in that sterile office, watching this 34-year-old CEO dismiss 18 years of my life, with a wave of her manicured hand, something inside me finally snapped. The folder in my hands contained every major project I'd built for this company. Every algorithm that kept their billion-dollar financial systems running. Every late night I'd sacrificed while she collected bonuses that could buy vacation homes. But what Jennifer didn't know was that my most valuable work had never belonged to Cloud Tech in the first place. The fraud detection system that saved us $1.8 million last year. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The blockchain security protocols that prevented 3 major attacks on our banking clients. The automated response systems that process 50,000 transactions per second without a single false positive. Jennifer waved dismissively, still chuckling as she leaned back in her ergonomic chair that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Michael, everyone's replaceable, even senior engineers with decades of experience. If you think you're worth more than $125,000, maybe it's time to think seriously about early retirement. Golf courses are nice this time of year. That's when I knew exactly what I was going to do. See, what Jennifer didn't understand was that while she was getting her computer science degree and learning about disruptive innovation, I was working 12 years at IBM, building the kind of systems that actually keep Fortune 500 companies from going under. I wasn't some dinosaur clinging to outdated approaches. I was the guy who understood that fancy new frameworks mean nothing if they can't handle real-world financial transactions at enterprise scale. The irony wasn't lost on me. My computer screen displayed the usual flood of notifications, Slack messages from junior developers asking me to review their code, emails from other departments begging me to fix problems they'd created. A calendar reminder for the weekly architecture meeting where I'd explain once again why certain approaches wouldn't work when you're processing millions of banking transactions daily. I walked back to my workstation through the open office maze. After 18 years and a director title, I still sat in what was essentially a fancy cubicle because open office culture promotes collaboration and innovation. My desk was wedged between 2 recent graduates who called me sir and asked me to explain basic concepts like why we couldn't just rewrite our entire legacy system over a weekend using some React framework they'd read about on TechCrunch. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across rows of standing desks where 25-year-olds in hoodies typed frantically on MacBooks, building tomorrow's technology on the foundation of systems I'd architected before they learned to drive. Next to my keyboard sat a photo from last Christmas. Rebecca looking tired, but managing a smile despite her type 1 diabetes getting worse. The continuous glucose monitor on her arm was a constant reminder of how expensive her condition had become. Victoria, my 19-year-old daughter, stressed about her medical school deposit that was due in 3 months minus $50,000 that we didn't have sitting in our checking account. Christopher, my 16-year-old son, already talking about community college because he didn't want to burden us with more debt. Health insurance was eating 35% of my take-home pay. Rebecca's insulin and diabetes supplies cost us $28,000 out of pocket last year, money we'd borrowed against the house. Victoria needed that deposit for Johns Hopkins. Christopher was looking at engineering schools that cost $60,000 a year. And here I was being laughed at for asking for an 8% raise after 18 years of loyal service. Meanwhile, Jennifer had just bought her second vacation home, according to the company newsletter, a ski chalet in Colorado to go with her primary residence in Westlake Hills. The same newsletter that featured a photo of her accepting an innovation award for the blockchain security framework I'd designed. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a small leather notebook I'd kept for years. The cover was worn from handling, filled with ideas I'd jotted down during lunch breaks, weekend thoughts, solutions that came to me during my commute. Inside were my personal projects, documented meticulously with dates, development notes, and implementation details. This wasn't company property. This was my intellectual playground. The notebook contained algorithms I'd written on my home computer, using my own hardware. Security protocols I'd refined in my garage lab on weekends. Machine learning models I'd trained on my personal servers. Code that Cloud Tech had implemented without formal acquisition because I'd been too trusting, too eager to be seen as a team player. too naive to understand that corporate loyalty was a one-way street. I flipped through the pages, each entry a reminder of nights and weekends spent building the future while my family slept. Page after page of innovations that had become the backbone of CloudTech's competitive advantage in the financial security market. The irony was bitter. Jennifer saw me as outdated, but every major system keeping her company ahead of competitors had originated in this notebook. I stopped at my notes from April 2021, a series of machine learning algorithms for advanced fraud detection that I developed during the pandemic lockdown. At the top of the page, written in my own handwriting, personal project, predictive security framework using neural networks, developed on Home System 4.15/21. Below it, detailed Git commit logs from my personal GitHub account, timestamped and documented with military precision. What Jennifer never knew, what CloudTech's legal department had been too careless to investigate, was that I'd never signed over the rights to these personal innovations. The standard employment contract I'd signed 18 years ago covered work done during company time using company resources. But my most valuable creations lived in a legal gray area. Personal projects developed on my equipment during my time, motivated by my own curiosity about emerging technologies. I pulled up my personal GitHub account on my phone, scrolling through repositories I'd created over the years. Hundreds of commits, thousands of lines of code, all time-stamped and documented. The fraud detection system that made CloudTech famous in financial circles. I'd originally built it in my garage lab to secure my personal cryptocurrency transactions back in 2019. The blockchain protocols that Jennifer took credit for in industry magazines? Weekend projects I'd developed on my own servers to understand the technology before it became mainstream. Every major breakthrough that CloudTech claimed as their intellectual property had started as my personal curiosity, my private tinkering, my unpaid passion for solving complex problems. I'd shared these innovations with the company out of loyalty, never thinking to protect my own interests, never imagining that the company I'd helped build would one day laugh at my request for fair compensation. My computer pinged with another email from HR about the quarterly company newsletter. The headline made my stomach turn. CloudTech's revolutionary security platform wins industry recognition. There was Jennifer's photo again, accepting another award for work that had kept me awake for months. The article quoted her talking about fostering innovation and building breakthrough technology without mentioning a single member of the engineering team. I thought about my father, who'd worked 30 years at the same manufacturing company in Michigan before they shipped his job to Mexico. Loyalty matters. He'd always said, take care of the company and the company will take care of you. He'd believed that right up until the day they handed him a pink slip and a pension that evaporated when the company declared bankruptcy 2 years later. My mother had echoed the same sentiment, working as a secretary for 28 years at a law firm that replaced her with a computer system when she turned 58. They'd given her a cake and a gold watch, then escorted her out the same day. Companies don't care about loyalty anymore, she'd told me afterward. They care about quarterly profits and stock prices. I should have listened to them both. Instead, I'd spent 18 years building someone else's empire, believing that hard work and dedication would eventually be rewarded, that the company I'd helped grow from a 200-person startup into a 3,000-employee corporation would remember who got them there. Jennifer's laughter had shattered that illusion like glass. My phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Anthony Williams, VP of Engineering at DataShield Corp., CloudTech's biggest competitor in the financial security space. We'd connected 2 years ago after a banking technology conference where I'd presented on fraud prevention algorithms. His messages had been persistent but respectful, always professional. His last message, sent 4 months ago, was still unread in my LinkedIn inbox. Michael, I've been following CloudTech's security innovations, and I know talent when I see it. The offer still stands whenever you're ready to have a real conversation. We value experience here, not just energy. We believe gray hair means wisdom, not obsolescence. At the time, I'd been flattered but dismissive. I was loyal to CloudTech. I believed in the mission. I thought Jennifer, despite her youth and corporate buzzwords, understood my value to the organization. How naive that seemed now, sitting in my cubicle after being humiliated for asking for what any reasonable person would consider a modest raise. My fingers hovered over the call button. 18 years of corporate conditioning screamed at me to stop, to be reasonable, to not burn bridges. What if this was just a bad day? What if Jennifer reconsidered? What if I could find a way to work within the system instead of abandoning it? Then I remembered her words. Maybe it's time to think seriously about early retirement. The dismissive wave of her hand, the way she'd talked about me like I was a piece of outdated equipment that needed to be recycled. The complete lack of respect for everything I'd built for this company. I thought about Rebecca, fighting diabetes complications while worrying about medical bills and insurance coverage. About Victoria, working 25 hours a week at a campus coffee shop to help pay for textbooks because her dad couldn't afford to give her a better life despite 18 years of loyal service. About Christopher, who'd already started talking about community college instead of engineering school because he didn't want to burden us with debt. My family deserved better than a father who accepted being undervalued and dismissed. They deserved someone who fought for what he was worth, who refused to be discarded like outdated hardware. Jennifer had made it clear that loyalty meant nothing to her. Maybe it was time to show her what disloyalty looked like. I pressed call. Anthony Williams speaking. The voice was warm, professional, with none of the artificial corporate enthusiasm I'd grown used to at Cloud Tech. Real confidence, not the manufactured kind that came from MBA programs and startup accelerators. This is Michael Peterson from Cloud Tech. I think it's time we had that conversation you mentioned. There was a pause, then genuine excitement in his voice. Michael, I was beginning to think you'd never call. I've been following your work for years. Are you finally ready to explore opportunities where experience is valued? I looked around the open office at the sea of young faces bent over their screens. At the glass-walled offices where managers younger than my children made decisions about systems they didn't understand. At the corner office where Jennifer was probably already planning how to replace her expensive legacy employee with hungry young talent. I'm ready, I said. When can we meet? How about dinner tonight? I know a place in downtown Austin where we can talk without interruption, say 700. I checked my calendar. Rebecca had her diabetes support group meeting tonight. The kids would be at their after-school activities. Perfect timing to start planning my future without Cloud Tech's involvement. I'll be there, I said. As I hung up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Not excitement exactly, but purpose. The feeling that I was finally taking control instead of letting others define my worth. Jennifer thought I was replaceable. We were about to find out just how wrong she was. 4 hours later, I sat across from Anthony Williams at Uchi, a high-end sushi restaurant in downtown Austin that required reservations weeks in advance. He'd made one phone call and gotten us a private corner table. That told me everything I needed to know about DataShield's influence in the financial technology world. Anthony was in his early 50s, gray at the temples but sharp-eyed, wearing a casual blazer over dark jeans. No corporate uniform, no power tie, no need to prove anything through expensive accessories. He looked like someone who'd built systems with his hands before he'd learned to manage budgets and teams. When he shook my hand, his grip was firm but not aggressive, the handshake of someone confident in his position. I've been following your work for years, Michael, Anthony said, studying me over his sake. Or rather, I've been following the sudden leaps in Cloud Tech's security capabilities that mysteriously coincided with your project timelines on LinkedIn. That fraud detection system for Sterling Bank, my team tried to reverse engineer the approach for 8 months and couldn't crack the methodology. I felt a knot in my stomach mixed with pride. Someone had actually noticed. Someone understood the technical complexity of what I'd built, while Jennifer dismissed it as legacy thinking. How did you know that was mine? Anthony smiled and took a sip of his drink. Because Jennifer Morrison doesn't have the technical background to understand even the basics of machine learning algorithms, let alone architect them from scratch. I've seen her speak at conferences. She's great with buzzwords like synergy and disruptive innovation, but terrible when it comes to actual substance. He leaned forward, lowering his voice as other diners chatted around us about IPOs and venture capital rounds. Plus, I have contacts throughout the industry. People talk. Your reputation among actual engineers is solid gold, even if management doesn't seem to recognize it. Half the security professionals in Austin know your work, even if they've never met you personally. I took a sip of beer, gathering my thoughts. The restaurant buzzed with conversations about tech acquisitions and startup funding, the soundtrack of an industry that worshipped youth and disruption. Here I was, a 49-year-old engineer in a world that thought innovation stopped at 35. What exactly are you offering? I asked. Senior engineering director position, oversight of our entire financial security division. Base salary $245,000, full equity package that vests over 4 years, and a team of 6 senior engineers. Emphasis on senior. Average age on my team is 47. We believe experience creates better code than enthusiasm alone. My breath caught. $245,000 was nearly double my current salary. Enough to handle Rebecca's medical costs without touching our retirement savings. Enough to pay Victoria's medical school deposit and Christopher's engineering school tuition without drowning in debt. Enough to finally stop choosing between financial security and family needs. But more importantly, Anthony continued, recognition. Your name on patents, your picture in trade publications, credit for the innovations you create. We're not interested in executives taking credit for engineering work. When you build something groundbreaking, your name goes on it. He paused, studying my expression carefully. And if you brought personal innovations with you, theoretical systems you developed on your own time using your own resources, we have a proper intellectual property acquisition process. Fair market compensation for proven technology. Something flickered in Anthony's eyes, understanding. He'd done his homework, knew about the legal gray areas that bigger companies often ignored in their rush to implement new technologies. DataShield wasn't just offering me a job. They were offering to properly value intellectual property that cloud tech had taken for granted. I pulled out my leather notebook and placed it on the table between us. I have Git commits and development documentation proving these systems were personal projects. Cloud tech implemented them, but they never formally acquired the rights. Anthony's eyes widened as he flipped through pages of algorithms, each entry dated and documented with the precision of someone who understood the importance of maintaining clear records. Years of weekend work, personal passion projects that have become the foundation of cloud tech's competitive advantage in the banking security market. This is comprehensive work, he said quietly. How much of cloud tech's security infrastructure is based on your personal innovations? About 55%, I said. The core fraud detection algorithms, the blockchain optimization frameworks, the automated response systems that handle their highest value clients, all developed in my home lab before the company implemented them. Anthony closed the notebook and met my eyes. That's quite an oversight on their legal team's part. Jennifer doesn't value senior functions, I said, echoing the CEO's dismissive attitude toward experienced employees, including legal. She's too focused on hiring fresh computer science graduates to worry about protecting existing intellectual assets. We spent the next 2 hours discussing technical details, team structures, and project timelines. Anthony understood the complexity of enterprise-scale systems in a way that Jennifer never had. He asked intelligent questions about scalability challenges, security trade-offs, and implementation hurdles that demonstrated real technical knowledge. He talked about DataShield's client base, major regional banks, credit unions, and financial services companies that needed bulletproof security without the overhead of maintaining their own specialized teams. The kind of work where my experience with legacy system integration would be invaluable, not dismissed as outdated thinking. We're not trying to revolutionize banking, Anthony explained. We're trying to make it more secure, more efficient, more reliable. That requires people who understand how financial systems actually work under pressure. Not just how they look in PowerPoint presentations for the first time in years. I felt like I was talking to someone who respected both my experience and my potential for future contributions. Someone who understood that 49 wasn't old in technology. It was experienced. By the time dessert arrived, we'd outlined a transition plan that would bring my personal innovations to DataShield while staying within legal boundaries. Everything documented, everything transparent. Everything Jennifer should have done years ago if she'd valued long-term relationships over short-term cost savings. One more thing, Anthony said as he paid the check. We're planning to announce a new initiative next quarter called Experience Matters. DataShield's formal commitment to hiring and promoting professionals over 45. You'd be our first high-profile hire, but not our last. The message was clear. This wasn't just about my individual situation. It was about changing how the entire industry thought about age and experience. 2 weeks later, I placed my resignation letter on Jennifer's desk. The irony wasn't lost on me, printed on cloud tech letterhead, submitted through official channels, following every protocol she claimed to value. Professional to the end, even as I prepared to dismantle everything she thought she owned. She barely looked up from her MacBook, her attention split between emails and a video conference she'd muted. The multitasking that passed for leadership in her generation. 2 weeks' notice, she said, scanning the letter quickly. Where are you going? I'd considered lying, crafting some story about consulting or early retirement, but truth had more impact, and I was done protecting her feelings. DataShield Corp. That got her attention. Her head snapped up from the screen, eyes narrowing with the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her since that morning's humiliation. Our biggest competitor. That's unfortunate timing. We're in final negotiations with Sterling Bank to expand our security contract. I know, I said simply. I built the fraud detection model that won us that contract in the first place. Jennifer's expression shifted from surprise to something resembling concern, maybe even fear. For the first time, I saw her calculating what my departure might actually cost the company beyond just replacing one employee. We should discuss retention options immediately, she said, her voice taking on a different tone. Perhaps that raise you mentioned this morning, maybe 15% plus a promotion to VP level. Stock options, whatever it takes. The offer was everything I'd wanted 2 weeks earlier. More than I'd dared to ask for. If she'd shown this flexibility that morning, none of this would have happened. But some doors, once closed, can't be reopened with money alone. The offer from DataShield is $245,000 plus equity, I said. But more importantly, they value experience over age bias. She laughed, but it sounded hollow now. Nothing like the confident dismissal from her office. They're overpaying by at least $70,000. You'll be disappointed when you realize a 49-year-old engineer can't adapt to their development pace. I smiled, feeling that strange new confidence that came from finally knowing my worth. We'll see who's disappointed. My last 2 weeks at Cloud Tech were surreal. Suddenly, people who'd barely acknowledged me for years wanted to take me to lunch, pick my brain about projects, understand systems they'd ignored. Middle management scrambled to document processes they'd never bothered to learn, realizing too late that institutional knowledge walked out the door with the people who created it. I completed every transition document with professional thoroughness, trained my replacement minus to 26-year-old named Christopher Davis, who seemed both eager and terrified, and backed up all my personal project documentation. I also made careful copies of every email where I'd shared innovations with the company, creating an evidence trail of Cloud Tech's failure to properly acquire what they'd freely used for years. I walked out of Cloud Tech's glass headquarters for the last time at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday in March. By Monday morning, I was sitting in my new corner office at DataShield, explaining to my team of 6 senior engineers how we were going to revolutionize financial security. Real engineers with real experience. The oldest was 53, the youngest was 41. People who understood that wisdom and energy weren't mutually exclusive. 6 weeks later, the first implementation of my enhanced security framework went live at DataShield. The same algorithms Jennifer had dismissed as outdated legacy thinking were now detecting fraud patterns 48 hours before they materialized. Processing speeds increased 42%, false positives dropped by 58%, client satisfaction scores jumped 35%. Our sales team had data proving we could outperform Cloud Tech's best metrics by significant margins. The machine learning models I'd trained in my garage were preventing financial crimes with 89% accuracy, compared to the industry standard of 74%. For the first time in 18 years, my innovations belonged to me legally and professionally, with my name properly credited on every patent filing. The morning Sterling Bank announced they were terminating their Cloud Tech contract and switching to DataShield. My phone started ringing. First call was from Austin Business Journal wanting to interview the veteran who revolutionized fintech security. Second call was from a venture capital firm interested in licensing our fraud detection technology for smaller banks. Third call was from Jennifer. I let it go to voicemail. She called 8 more times over 3 days before leaving a message that I saved for posterity. Michael, this is Jennifer. We need to discuss consulting opportunities immediately. Cloud Tech is prepared to offer substantial compensation for your expertise. Please call me back as soon as possible. We made a mistake. The admission felt hollow. Too little, too late. Motivated by panic rather than genuine recognition. I didn't return the call. 5 days later, Jennifer was waiting beside my car in the DataShield parking garage. She looked different, tired, stressed, none of the polished confidence from that morning when she'd laughed at my raise request. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and we both knew it. This is inappropriate, I said, maintaining distance while fishing for my car keys. You've put 145 jobs at risk, she said, her voice urgent and desperate. Cloud Tech is facing an existential crisis because of the intellectual property you took. I didn't take anything that belonged to Cloud Tech. I replied calmly. I took my personal intellectual property that your company used without proper acquisition. Your legal team never did their due diligence, and you never valued experienced personnel enough to care about the details. Jennifer stepped closer, desperation evident in her bloodshot eyes. She'd probably been working 18-hour days trying to contain the damage, discovering too late how much of her company's success had depended on systems she'd never bothered to understand. Name your price. Whatever Data Shield is paying, we'll double it, triple it. We'll make you CTO, give you equity, whatever you want. I thought about those 18 years sitting in that cubicle while she collected bonuses and awards for my work. About that morning when she dismissed me like obsolete hardware, about my family's financial struggles that her 8% refusal had made worse. You once told me everyone's replaceable, I said quietly, even senior engineers with decades of experience. I'm just following your business philosophy. Your loyalty means nothing if the people in charge don't value what you bring to the table. Sometimes walking away is the only way to show them what they're losing. Age isn't a weakness in tech. It's accumulated wisdom waiting for the right opportunity to prove that experience and innovation aren't opposites. They're the perfect partnership.